Psalms 38, 39, and 40 respond to Psalm 37. In Psalm 37, we hear Jesus' voice. He speaks wisdom. He points out the way of the righteous and the way of the wicked. He shows their contrasting destinies. He encourages those who have to put their trust in him to continue to do so and to recognize that they ultimately will be the ones who dwell in safe pasture and in the land that God has designated for his people to live in forever. And in Psalm 38, we then see David confessing his sins because he wants to be sure that he is going to be on the side of the righteous. That is, he is going to be vindicated by God. And so he does not want sin to get in his way. He confesses his sin before the Lord. In Psalm 39, we see similarly David confessing his sin again. And at the end of Psalm 39, David cries out to the Lord for help. And if you look at Psalm 40, you recognize right at the beginning that David says he waited patiently for the Lord. And in response to his cries, the Lord did answer and intervene. And out of that testimony, David then moves to a statement of principle about how those who trust in the Lord are the ones who will be blessed. Again, we are taken back to Psalms 1 and 2, in which David contrasts the way of the righteous and the way of the wicked and points out that all those who trust in the Lord, all those who put their faith in the Messiah King to come, are the ones who are going to be blessed. David recognizes that regarding the issue of sin, the Lord is not interested in mere religious ritual. He's interested in the approach of humility, the one that says, "Here, O God, I am. I have come. I desire to surrender." David recognizes that the issue of confession of sin is ultimately an issue of surrender. He speaks several commitments besides the one I just mentioned about coming to Lord in surrender. And as we reflect upon these commitments, we realize how far short that in actual daily practice, consistent practice, we do not meet such commitments. There's only one who did, Jesus Christ the righteous. So as David recognizes his need to confess his sin, to call out to mercy, once again, I raise the question of how such a psalm can be a prayer of Jesus himself. We know that, as in earlier passages that I have pointed out to, in earlier psalms we have reflected on, Jesus was perfect. He was sinless. He did not fail to live up to God's standards of righteousness that God has laid down in his law. He is the one who met the requirements. And so how could this be the voice of Jesus confessing sin? I come back to 2 Corinthians 5:21, in which Paul says, God made him, that is Jesus Christ, who had no sin, to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. And so this psalm, like many others that confess sins, is the voice of the Messiah, not that he himself sinned, but that he took our place in such confession. And it is only in him that we ourselves can go to confession, because even our confessions fall short. But the Messiah's intervention on our behalf, paid for by his life, death, and resurrection, is the reason that we ourselves can go to God to confess sin and then expect him also to receive or grant us such forgiveness. Out of confession, out of recognition that God will indeed intervene, David has the confidence to ask the Lord to come against those who stand against him, while at the same time recognizing that he himself is the one who is the most needy. Once again, I try to drive home the point that the Psalms are not put together in some haphazard fashion. Yes, indeed, that each one of them was written in a particular situation and for a particular reason, but the compilers of the Psalms then put them together in a line, in a string, in order to show how one after another they follow each other. if not directly, then indirectly, because they circle around back and again and again and again, from one to the other and back to the other and back to the one that's being spoken of. They all hold together as unified piece, pointing and reflecting and showing a mosaic of the life of Christ as he stood in our place as our representative. Such is the case as demonstrated through Psalms 37 through 40. And in Psalms 41, or excuse me, in Psalm 41, we will see how this section of the psalm closes out before we move to another series of psalms that take somewhat of a different direction.